Quickly, Gordon Chang of Forbes.com, and we're joined by Arthur Waldron of the University of Pennsylvania. We go to a quote from the Chief of Naval Operations. Most recently, this is Admiral Jonathan Greenert, looking at the crisis potential in East Asia between Japan and China, between China and Vietnam, between China and the Philippines. If you talk about it openly, said the Admiral, you cross the line and unnecessarily antagonize the Chinese. You probably have a sense about how much we trade with that country. It's astounding. And then the Admiral refers to questions about countering Chinese ships and aircraft. In a classified nature, we look at all of this, said the Admiral. There are groups up at the Naval War College, we talk to some of them all the time, Gordon, that talk about it all the time. A very good evening to you, Arthur. Is the Navy in retreat along with the Obama administration, or is it that the Admiral is not reading carefully that it's Chinese aggression that is the problem, not American antagonism? Good evening to you, Arthur.
Good evening. Well, I think the Admiral is well-intentioned, but he is forgetting the number one thing, which is that we want to avoid China starting a war. And the way we do that is by taking every opportunity, every kind of verbal exchange, to remind them that if they should try anything military, they will be resisted by American allies and with the United States fully behind them. So before he says anything about the origin of incidents, he should simply say something along the lines of, the United States, everyone must understand, will always stand behind its Asian allies, even in conditions of extreme threat or danger. We're not going to be frightened off. Everybody in the world should know that the United States is a strong and reliable ally. And although we are a peace-loving country, never underestimate the amount of harm that we can do. That sort of message has to be repeated constantly. And it has to also be demonstrated by action, because the thing that we're doing is teaching the Chinese exactly the wrong lesson. We're teaching them the lesson that we are sort of infinitely gullible, infinitely malleable, capable of rationalizing anything, and that they can just push us and push us and push us, and people will say, oh dear, maybe they're pushing us because we said something wrong and it's really our fault. And if they start to think that, then they might try something very dangerous.
There's something really wrong in the Navy. Here you have the Navy, where the chief of Pacific Operations a few years ago said, we're going to help China build aircraft carriers. Then you have the current chief of the Pacific Forces, Admiral Samuel Locklear, say, what's the biggest threat in the Asia-Pacific region? Well, he said it was climate change. And now Admiral Greenert, who is the chief sailor in the United States, the chief of the Navy, says, oh my gosh, you know, although China is the aggressor in Asia, we shouldn't unnecessarily antagonize it. Well, that's just like saying in 1939, well, we shouldn't get Hitler upset because he might do something. Well, this is really, really wrong.
There was a famous British newspaper editor who said, I endeavor to see to it every day that nothing appears in my newspaper that might cause offense to Herr Hitler. But as a longtime employee of the U.S. Navy, I have to say that I think you're being a little bit hard. What we're dealing here with is admirals who are perhaps good at sea and good at being admirals, but aren't very good in the diplomatic spotlight. And the incessant message from above since 1970s has been that the United States and China are going to be friends, no matter what. That we're going to be the best friends, damn it, no matter what. And in the last couple of years, there has been a rather abrupt change in China's behavior that's made it crystal clear that that's no longer even to be considered. But it's taking a while for people to break habits and to abandon hopes. So I think what is needed really is strong statements actually starting at the top. It's not up to the CNO to deter the Chinese. It's up to the president occasionally to say something along the lines that I described earlier. But the CNO certainly should not say something like suggesting that we are to blame. He should, he should say sound things too.
Yes, clearly there's been a problem with, for instance, President Bush, President Obama, going all the way back to President Nixon in the way that we've looked at China. And that, of course, is a political problem. It's not a Navy problem. But you do tend to see, as you point out, statements from admirals which are incomprehensible because we know what the threat is. The Chinese have been seizing reefs and shoals from their neighbors in acts of pure aggression, sometimes from our treaty allies, and the Navy hasn't been doing anything about it. This is a problem.
I know that's right, but the White House has to tell the Navy to do something.
Of course, but what you have, though, is the Chinese are looking at all of this, including the statements from the Navy, and saying, oh my gosh, the Americans don't have any will. We can push them around.
Admiral Green.
That's the great danger, because what happens is that precisely at the point that they conclude that we have no will and that we're worms, we wake up and say, wait a second, are they pushing us around, not understanding that we're being sincere and we're trying to befriend them? Are they just, taking advantage of us? Are they the bullies? My God, and then we get mad. And people, that's how wars begin, regularly. I mean, we all know Ribbentrop told Hitler, the English are worms. Declare war, they'll do nothing.
Arthur,
Poland. And
Arthur, these quotes, we've just got 30 seconds. These quotes from Admiral Greenert, was he ordered to talk like this?
I'm not sure he's ordered directly, but there's very, very powerful political pressure on everybody in the military to line up with whatever the pervading doctrine is. And right now, we're not sure what it is, and neither are they. And that's the fault of the people at the very top for not being crystal clear.
Arthur Waldron, Lauder Professor of International Relations at the University of Pennsylvania. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com. I'm John Patchen.